There's something about Thanksgiving that makes people show their true colors. Maybe it's the forced smiles, the overcooked turkey, or the way everyone pretends they've always been one big happy family. Whatever it is, I should have known better than to show up this year. But I guess part of me still thought things could go back to how they used to be, before the secrets, before the lies, before my mom started looking through me like I was nothing more than background noise in her perfect little narrative. My name's Jason. I'm 26. Not the most exciting guy you'll ever meet. I work a boring IT job, I read a lot of true crime, and I spend most of my weekends fixing up an old Mazda that's basically more rust than car. I used to be the golden child, back when grades mattered and my mom could brag about me at her church group. That all changed when my younger sister, Ellie, got herself a boyfriend who knew how to turn on the charm. That guy could have burned down the house, and she would have called it romantic. Ellie's 2 years younger than me, and has always been the center of attention. Ever since we were kids, she had this way of making everything about her. If I got an award, she cried about being left out. If I got grounded, she pouted because I was ruining the mood. But somehow, everyone just loved her. She was the pretty one, the sweet one, the one who could get away with anything, because that's just Ellie. And my mom, she fed right into it. I swear, that woman could be waist-deep in evidence Ellie lied, and she'd still find a way to blame me. Things hit a turning point a couple years ago, but I didn't speak up until this Thanksgiving. I'd been waiting, planning, watching everything unravel behind the scenes while they thought I was just the bitter older brother. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the start, when I got the invite. Or, I should say, when I got the text. Hey Jason, dinner's at 3. Bring dessert. Mom. No please. No love you. Just an assignment. A task. Like I was the help. It shouldn't have bothered me. This wasn't new, but it did. It always does. Because I still remember when she used to call me her little hero. When she used to ask me for help picking out Ellie's birthday gifts, because you know her better than anyone. Those days were long gone. Now I was just the guy who didn't bring enough whipped cream last year. I stared at the message for a solid minute before replying with a thumbs up. I didn't even get a response. Just a read receipt. That was 10 days before Thanksgiving. The thing about my family is, they're big on appearances. My mom hosts every year like it's some royal gathering. We're talking table runners, name cards, 3 different types of stuffing. She invites the whole crew, my uncles, aunts, cousins, even some people from her Bible study group who have nowhere else to go. And of course, Ellie's boyfriend gets prime seating. Front and center like he's the guest of honor. The guy's name is Trent. Yeah, Trent. If that doesn't tell you everything, I don't know what will. He's one of those guys who always smells like expensive cologne and talks like he read a book on confidence, but didn't understand it. He's got this smug little half smile like he's constantly winning a game no one else knows they're playing. Last Christmas, he gave everyone matching mugs with his initials on them. I wish I was kidding. But the thing that really got to me was how my mom treated him. You'd think he walked on water. Trent fixed the garbage disposal. Trent taught Ellie how to make risotto. Trent said Jason should look into a better job. He's so wise. It was like watching her try to replace me with a newer model. I started making a list, actually, every time she mentioned him in a way that felt like a dig at me. I called it the Trent log. Not because I thought I'd ever use it, but because it made me feel like I wasn't crazy. Anyway, the week before Thanksgiving, something strange happened. I got a notification on my phone, an airdrop request. I was at the auto shop, waiting for them to rotate my tires, and someone had tried to send me a photo. I declined it, obviously. But then it happened again. And again. 3 photos. All from someone nearby. The last one went through before I could reject it. It was blurry, but I recognized 2 things immediately. Ellie's handwriting on a notepad, and Trent's name. And next to it, a number. A large number. With a $sign. That's when I started digging. I won't lie. I have a certain set of skills. Nothing dramatic. Just years of poking around in spreadsheets and phone backups and cloud drives. I don't like being lied to. And I really don't like being made to feel like I'm imagining things. What I found over the next few days wasn't just petty gossip or jealousy. It was worse. So much worse. But I didn't confront anyone. Not yet. I screenshotted everything. Saved it in a folder called Holiday Recipes on my phone, just in case anyone ever got curious. I knew I had to wait. If I brought it up too soon, I'd be the bad guy. The bitter, resentful brother trying to ruin everyone's fun. But if I waited, if I timed it just right, I could make them see. really see what was going on. And maybe, just maybe, I could finally take back a little bit of the dignity they'd chipped away at over the years. Thanksgiving morning, I baked an apple pie from scratch. Not because anyone asked me to, but because it gave me something to do with my hands. Something that felt normal. I even carved a little leaf pattern into the crust. It smelled amazing. I boxed it up carefully and got dressed in my usual button-down and jeans. Nothing fancy, just enough to look like I cared. I left a little early, knowing traffic would be a mess. And sure enough, it was. Took me almost an hour to get across town. When I finally pulled into my mom's driveway, the house looked like something out of a holiday magazine. Pumpkins on the porch, wreath on the door, candles flickering in the windows. I almost felt nostalgic. But then I got out of the car. I didn't even make it up the steps before I heard my Uncle Ray's voice. Booming, obnoxious, and way too loud for someone who hadn't seen me in a year. "Well, look who it is," he said, standing in the doorway with a beer in one hand and a smirk on his face. "Didn't think you were coming after what happened last time." I blinked. "What do you mean, last time?" He just laughed. "You know what I mean. Come on, don't make this weird." I hadn't seen Uncle Ray since the 4th of July barbecue, when he got blackout drunk and knocked over the grill. But somehow I was the problem. I tried to brush it off, balancing the pie in one hand as I climbed the steps. That's when I heard her voice. "Jason," my mom said, stepping into view behind Ray. "We weren't sure you'd actually show." Her tone was clipped. Not cold, exactly, but distant. Like I was a co-worker who missed a meeting. "I brought the pie," I said, holding it up like a peace offering. She didn't even look at it. We had plenty of dessert. "Okay." Then, from behind her, I heard Ellie's laugh. That same high-pitched giggle she used to use when she was about to tell a lie. And right next to her was Trent, looking down at his phone like he was bored out of his mind. "I thought I had a seat at the table," I said, confused, shifting the pie from one hand to the other. My mom smiled, tight and polite. "Oh well." Trent's parents showed up unexpectedly. We had to make some adjustments. "You understand." That's when Ellie piped up. "It's just one meal, Jace. Don't be dramatic." I was still standing on the porch, not even through the door. No one had moved to let me in. No one had taken the pie. My arms were getting tired. "You're not welcome here," Uncle Ray said suddenly, taking a sip of his beer. "You bring drama wherever you go. Maybe just sit this one out." I stood there, stunned. It was like the words didn't register at first. But then I saw it. My mom reaching behind her to grab a chair. My chair. And handing it to Trent, who didn't even look up. That's when I turned around, walked back to my car, and sat inside for a moment. Breathing. Thinking. Feeling that old, familiar burn in my chest that I'd spent years swallowing down. Then I pulled up the folder labeled Holiday Recipes. I chose one screenshot. Just one. The one that would detonate everything. I hit send. 10 minutes later, my phone started blowing up. And that's when the real chaos began. I didn't drive off right away. I just sat there in my car with the pie on the passenger seat, my phone lighting up like it was trying to warn me about a storm I'd started. One message, then another, and another. First it was Ellie, then my mom, then a string of angry emojis from someone I hadn't talked to in years. The group chat, Family Feast, was exploding. The screenshot I'd sent wasn't complicated. Just a photo of a check made out to Ellie for $14,000. Memo line. Partial advance. Will explain later. Signed by my late grandfather. A check that no one else knew about. Especially not the rest of the family, who were still arguing about his estate. And I hadn't said a word with the photo. Just dropped it in the chat like a grenade and waited. See, when Grandpa passed last year, he didn't leave a traditional will. He'd been meticulous but private. The estate was in probate, and my mom was one of the executors. There'd been this whole ordeal with assets being evaluated, accounts being frozen, and promises of splitting things fairly. But something about it always felt off. Too quiet. Too curated. I found the check by accident 2 months ago, after updating Grandpa's old backup drive. I'd been helping my cousin Noah with some tech stuff and used my own rig to skim the contents. Most of it was junk, old photos, Word docs, some scanned receipts. But then I opened a folder titled Private for Executor Only. Inside was a PDF scan of that check, along with a short email chain between Grandpa and Ellie. I don't know how it got there. Maybe he meant to delete it. Maybe he didn't care. Either way, there it was. She'd asked for a small favor to help with her business venture and promised it would be just between them. Grandpa had agreed, reluctantly. That email was dated 3 weeks before he fell and hit his head. No one ever mentioned any money. Ellie played the grieving granddaughter role like she was auditioning for an Oscar. I kept my mouth shut, waiting for a good reason to blow it up. And now? Now they'd taken my seat. Laughed at me. Shut the door in my face like I was a delivery guy with the wrong address. I watched the group chat turn from confusion to denial to raw panic. Mom, what is this, Jason? Ellie, delete that right now. Uncle Ray, of all people, chimed in. Looks fake. My cousin Noah, bless him, finally stepped in. Wait, didn't Mom say no one was allowed to take money until probate was over? That was all it took. A spark in a dry forest. I closed the chat, started my car, and drove off. Not home, though. I wasn't ready to sit in that silence yet. Instead, I pulled into a gas station down the road and sat there, watching as the messages kept coming. The more they tried to explain it away, the worse it got. Trent even messaged me directly. This is low, bro, real low. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. It was wild how quickly the guilt turned into rage. Like I was the villain for revealing something they'd been hiding. Like I'd ruined Thanksgiving just by refusing to eat my portion of lies and keep smiling. My mom's last message said, "We'll talk about this later. Please don't ruin what's left of today." As if there was still a day worth saving. I drove home in the dark, my pie untouched. My apartment was cold and quiet, and it hit me how alone I was. But weirdly, that night I slept better than I had in months. The fallout didn't really start until the next day. My phone rang at 8:12 a.m. It was my Aunt Rachel, Uncle Ray's wife. She never calls me. I hesitated, then picked up. Jason, she said, her voice low. Can you send me that screenshot again? Ray deleted it from the group chat. So I did. By noon, 3 other cousins had messaged me. Turns out Grandpa's estate was supposed to be split evenly among the grandkids. 5 of us in total. That check to Ellie? That was her trying to get her cut early. Except she hadn't just taken it early. She'd taken more. Later in the day, I posted the rest of the documents. The emails. A second, smaller check to Trent, $3,500, for marketing help. That one hit like a slap. The group chat imploded. People left. Screenshots flew. Ellie tried calling me 3 times. Then she sent a voice message. I didn't even listen to it. I just saved it to my archive. Insurance. For the next few days, things were oddly quiet. My mom didn't call. No apologies, no explanations. Ellie went radio silent. Then, out of nowhere, Noah texted me. Dude. Family meeting at your mom's place. Tomorrow. 6 p.m. Be there. I didn't answer. But I showed up. I wore black. Not for drama, just because it felt appropriate. The vibe in that living room was tense enough to cut with a knife. Everyone was there, except Ellie and Trent. My mom looked like she hadn't slept. Uncle Ray looked annoyed, like he'd rather be anywhere else. Aunt Rachel was clutching a manila folder. Noah gave me a nod when I walked in. Thanks for coming, my mom said, not looking at me. Sure, I said, sitting on the far end of the couch. No one offered me a drink. The meeting was basically 2 hours of arguing. Everyone trying to figure out how much Ellie had taken, how it had gone unnoticed, and what could be done. My mom defended her at first. Of course she did. It was just a mistake. She thought she'd be able to pay it back. But when Noah pulled up the email chain from the probate attorney confirming no funds were to be released, her tone changed. She made a mistake, she said again. But she's family. That's when I said it. So am I? Or did you forget that when you gave my seat to her boyfriend? Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. My mom looked at me, her mouth slightly open. Jason, that wasn't about you. We had to. You didn't have to do anything, I said, keeping my voice even. You made a choice. Just like she made a choice. And now you all get to live with that. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood up, nodded to Noah, and walked out. The air outside felt colder than before, like something had shifted. That night, I got another message. This one wasn't from family. It was from Trent. It read, "We need to talk. I know things. Things you don't." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Because Trent wasn't the type to bluff. He wasn't smart enough to make things up, but he was arrogant enough to talk when he shouldn't. I didn't respond. Not yet. But I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. What he sent next changed everything. When Trent's message popped up that night, "We need to talk. I know things. Things you don't." I felt my gut tighten in a way I hadn't felt since my dad left when I was 12. It was that same creeping dread, The one that coils behind your ribs when you know the next page of the story is going to change everything. I stared at my phone for 10 minutes before I responded with a simple talk. No reply. Not for hours. Then, at 2:13 a.m., just as I was slipping into that half-sleep where your thoughts melt into static, my phone vibrated. It was a long paragraph. No punctuation. Rushed. Sloppy. She made me cash the checks. Both of them. I didn't want to, but she said her mom knew about it. She said the money was early access and that you'd probably figure it out eventually. She told me if I said anything she'd say it was my idea. I have screenshots. I want to send them to you. But not here. I blinked at the screen. I wasn't sure what disturbed me more, that Trent was finally breaking, or that he thought I was the safe one. The guy they'd iced out on Thanksgiving was now the only person he could trust. It was surreal, but I didn't gloat. Not then. We arranged to meet the next day. A coffee shop halfway between his place and mine. One of those hipster joints where everything's reclaimed wood and indie playlists. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on my couch, replaying every memory, every offhand comment Ellie made in the past year. It all started clicking into place like a sick puzzle. Trent showed up late, looking jumpy. No flashy smile, no expensive jacket. Just a hoodie and jeans and bloodshot eyes. He had a manila envelope clutched in his hand like it might burn him. He slid it across the table without a word. Inside were printouts of text messages, screenshots of Venmo transactions, even a photo of Ellie holding a check while flipping off the camera with her other hand. The date stamp? 3 days after Grandpa's funeral. She said she was owed. Trent muttered, stirring his coffee even though he hadn't added anything to it. Said the rest of you didn't do enough for him. That she was the only one who visited him in the hospital, so she deserved more. I wanted to throw the cup across the room. Not because I was surprised, but because part of me had visited Grandpa. I'd sat there with him and watched him struggle to remember where he was, what day it was, whether Ellie was still in school. He called me by my dad's name once, and I still remember the way he smiled when I corrected him. Jason, he said. That's right. You always show up. But I didn't post about it. I didn't broadcast it. I just was there. Quietly. And she used it. Turned it into leverage for a payout. Of course she did. What do you want from me? I finally asked. Trent looked up. I want out. Of all of it. Ellie, the family, the drama. I should have walked a year ago, but your mom loved me and I liked being someone. You know, I did. That's the thing, I really did. He left me the documents and told me to do what I had to do. I walked out with that envelope and felt like I was holding nuclear codes. I didn't even go home. I drove to a park, sat on a bench under a dead tree, and let the cold November wind cut through me. I was done. Done waiting for apologies. Done hoping they'd suddenly remember I was family. Done thinking this was just a phase and things would go back to normal. This was normal. This had always been normal. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. But that didn't make it hurt any less. The next few weeks were quiet. No one reached out. The family group chat stayed silent. Ellie and Trent broke up. I only knew because she wiped him off her Instagram and posted one of those cryptic stories that read, "Better to lose a man than lose yourself." Classic. I withdrew. Stopped going to the gym. Skipped my usual D&D sessions with coworkers. Thanksgiving turned into December. And December turned into a blur of rainy mornings, microwave dinners, and a growing stack of unopened mail on my kitchen table. I was depressed. That's not easy to admit, but it's true. When your family shuts the door on you and makes you feel like you're the villain in a story you never wrote, it chips away at something vital. Even with the proof in my hands, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow, betrayed, discarded. I'd hit rock bottom. And in a strange way, that gave me clarity. Rock bottom meant there was nothing left to lose. I took the pie dish out of the fridge one morning in early January. The same one from Thanksgiving. Still untouched. Mold blooming like a science experiment. I tossed it, cleaned the sink, and opened my laptop. I didn't go scorched earth. Not right away. What I did was simpler. I started rebuilding. Quietly. Patiently. Piece by piece. I switched jobs. I'd been working IT for a mid-sized accounting firm. Good pay, but toxic culture. I'd been coasting there for years. Now, I started freelancing. Nothing fancy, just website security gigs and back-end fixes for small businesses. Clients I could choose. Hours I could control. At first, I was broke. Like instant noodles for dinner broke. But then a local real estate group hired me to overhaul their booking platform. and suddenly I wasn't just surviving. I was doing something, building something of my own. Next, I canceled Christmas. Didn't respond to the family texts. Didn't send cards. Noah reached out once, said he missed me. I told him I'd always have his back, but I needed space. He understood. In January, I started therapy. That's the part no one talks about. Not in stories like this. The part where you finally decide you're not okay. That maybe the problem isn't that the world's out to get you, but that you never learned how to stop apologizing for existing. It was virtual at first. My therapist, Mira, was calm and direct. She asked questions no one ever had. When did you first feel like love was conditional? What do you believe would happen if you spoke up? Why do you think you saved that screenshot for months? And I told her everything. About my mom's favoritism. About Ellie always taking and being praised for it. About Grandpa. About the Thanksgiving door. About how I'd never been angrier and never felt more alone. Every week, I got a little stronger. I started running again. Nothing major, just a mile or two around the block with old podcasts in my ears. I deleted half my social media. Stopped checking what Ellie was posting. Stopped reading family threads. Stopped hoping they'd change. And slowly, people noticed. Clients started referring me. One even sent a thank you gift, a coffee mug with Hackerman on it. I laughed harder than I had in months. Then, in early March, Noah called again. You might want to check the family group, he said. I hesitated, but I opened it. There were photos, screenshots, legal ones. Apparently, Aunt Rachel had petitioned for a third-party audit of the estate. The court had agreed, and in doing so, discovered not just Ellie's early withdrawal, but a second hidden account that had been set up to funnel small amounts monthly. Not large enough to be suspicious, but enough to matter. The executor had been my mom. She'd known. The whole time. She'd helped Ellie do it. I didn't react. Not externally. I just closed the app, sat back in my chair, and felt this quiet, terrifying clarity settle into my bones. This wasn't over. Not yet. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't just want peace. I wanted the truth. Out in the open. With names. And if they thought Thanksgiving was a mess, they had no idea what was coming next. There's a strange kind of calm that comes after a betrayal, so deep it rewires your understanding of reality. The day I found out my mom had helped Ellie siphon money from Grandpa's estate, had actively participated in hiding the transactions, I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I didn't even feel rage. I felt still, like standing in the eye of a storm. I sat there at my kitchen table, the message from Noah still open on my phone, staring at the little PDF attachment the family group chat had blown up over. A preliminary court audit. It spelled everything out in dry, clinical language. The amount missing. The accounts used. The authorization signatures. One in Ellie's handwriting. One in my mother's. The phrase fiduciary misconduct kept jumping out at me. When Grandpa died, the house was supposed to go to my mom, but only as a temporary holding. It was his idea to leave it in a trust so the grandkids could inherit it equally. It was never meant to be hers forever, just a place to keep the family anchored until it could be sold and divided. That was the agreement. Apparently, my mom didn't see it that way. Over the months following his death, she quietly refinanced the home, took out small lines of credit against its value. Nothing big enough to raise red flags, but enough to fund whatever Ellie needed. Business expenses, my aunt called it. The thing is, Ellie didn't have a business. She had a YouTube channel and a $1,000 ring light. And I guess that was the final piece I needed. Because for months, I'd been collecting stories. Not on purpose, at first. Just little things, offhand remarks from cousins, whispers at family gatherings, inconsistencies in my mom's timeline. But after Thanksgiving, I started paying attention. I built a file. I called it the tapestry. Not because I was feeling poetic, but because that's what it started to look like. A woven mess of people, dates, and motives. Venmo receipts, old Facebook posts, property records, emails from Grandpa's lawyer. It was all there. And now, thanks to the court audit, I had confirmation. I had leverage. The thing is, when you're labeled the quiet one, when people assume you'll just take the hits and go home, it becomes your greatest advantage. No one sees you coming. So I made a plan. The first thing I did was reach out to Noah. If I was going to take this on, I needed someone in the family I could trust. And Noah? He'd always been solid. The only cousin who never made fun of me growing up. The only one who stood up when Ellie joked about me being the mailman's kid. He came over that Friday night with takeout and 2 six-packs. We sat in my living room, surrounded by half-finished IKEA furniture and printouts spread across the coffee table. "You sure about this?" he asked, flipping through one of the PDFs. "Because once you do this, there's no coming back." I nodded. There was no coming back after Thanksgiving. He leaned back, exhaling through his nose. "Fair." Over the next few days, we worked like we were planning a heist. First, we compiled everything we had: legal records, emails, scanned checks, even old text messages between my mom and Ellie from a phone backup I'd pulled off her cloud 2 years ago when she asked me to fix her login. I never deleted it. She always used the same password. Then we outlined a timeline. When the money started moving. When Grandpa got sick. When Trent entered the picture. When the refinancing began. When the business was announced. It all lined up. Every betrayal. Every lie. Every laugh at my expense while they thought I was too weak or oblivious to see what they were doing. Next, I reached out to an old college friend, Danielle. She was a probate attorney now, working out of a modest office downtown. We hadn't talked in a while, but when I told her what I had, she made time for coffee within the hour. She listened, took notes, asked sharp questions. At the end of it, she looked me in the eye and said, "You realize you're sitting on enough to force a full forensic investigation, right? If this goes public, your mom could face serious charges. Ellie too." "I'm not trying to ruin lives," I said, though the words tasted false even as I said them. "I just want the truth out." Danielle smirked. "Same difference, sometimes." She offered to help, for free. Called it a favor, said she always liked my dry humor in study group. I wasn't about to say no. With her guidance, I drafted a statement for the court. A formal complaint, with attached exhibits. I didn't file it yet. That wasn't the move. Not yet. Because first, I needed to shake the tree. I started with Ellie. I knew she couldn't resist bait. Especially not if it threatened her image. So I posted a vague status on my rarely used Facebook account. Funny how some people talk about self-love and empowerment when they got their success stealing from a dead man's trust fund. Receipts soon. Within an hour, she messaged me. "What is your problem?" No greeting. No punctuation. I waited 10 minutes. Then I replied, "You should talk to Mom." Seen. No response. 2 days later, she posted a video to her channel. A ranty, not so thinly veiled, exposing haters monologue where she played the victim card so hard it might as well have been laminated. She said she'd cut off toxic family, claimed people were spreading lies out of jealousy, and hinted that she was being blackmailed. Classic deflection. What she didn't realize was that her little rant had caught the attention of more than just her 7,000 subscribers. One of her sponsors, a small eco-skincare brand, reached out to her asking for clarification. How do I know? Because Noah sent me the internal message their rep forwarded to him. Turns out, his girlfriend worked in their marketing department. The dominoes were starting to wobble. Then came the final trigger. My mom called me. I hadn't heard her voice in 3 months. It still made my chest tighten, years of muscle memory and buried hope colliding at once. "Jason," she said, carefully composed. "I think we should talk. In person. About the estate. About everything." I didn't answer right away. "I'd rather have my attorney present," I said eventually. A pause. "You got a lawyer?" I had to. I replied, keeping my tone flat. "After what I found." Another pause. This one longer. "Then, we're family. You didn't have to go this far." I almost laughed. "You went further." She sighed, long and theatrical. "What do you want?" There it was. No apology. No remorse. Just the question they all eventually ask. "What do you want to make this go away?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I wanted everything. Not money. Not revenge for its own sake. I wanted the silence to break. I wanted everyone who ever looked at me like I was an afterthought to see. I wanted the playing field leveled. Not just for me, but for every cousin they dismissed, every truth they buried under politeness and prayer circles. The setup was almost complete. One last piece remained, the public reveal. I didn't want to dump everything online and become a viral Reddit case. That wasn't my style. What I wanted was surgical, clean, unignorable. So I called in a favor from an old client, a local podcast host who covered family legal disputes and true crime adjacent drama. His show wasn't huge, but it had a loyal following. When I told him the story, anonymized for now, he said, "This is insane. And if you have the receipts, it could be our biggest episode yet." I gave him everything. Redacted names, masked voices, blurred documents, just enough to make a splash. And right before he published it, I did one more thing. I sent a final message in the Family Feast group chat. It read, "Hi everyone. You should listen to this," followed by the podcast link. Then I turned my phone off, leaned back in my chair, and waited for the sound of everything they built on lies finally collapsing. I didn't turn my phone back on for 8 hours. I went for a walk instead, one of those long, deliberate ones where you don't care where you end up. I wandered through a nearby park, cut through an alley behind the community theater, ended up at a bench in front of a frozen pond. My breath fogged the air as I sat, letting the quiet soak in. The last few months had been a blur of betrayal, research, therapy, and the slow, steady build towards something that couldn't be undone. I wasn't scared. I was ready. When I finally powered my phone back on, the notifications came in like a flood. Texts, missed calls, voicemails. The family group chat was in full meltdown mode. There were over 150 unread messages. Half of them were deleted already, but others remained, screenshot-worthy rants, desperate explanations, and a few threats from people who clearly didn't understand how podcasts work. Ellie's was the first call to come through. I declined it. Then came a text. "You have no idea what you just did." I didn't respond, because the thing was, I knew exactly what I'd done. The podcast had gone live that morning. A 58-minute expose, with names redacted, but enough context clues for anyone in our town, or anyone on Facebook, honestly, to piece it together. The story of a family matriarch who abused her role as executor, a daughter who manipulated an inheritance, a grandson who uncovered everything and stayed silent until the day they shut the door in his face. It was emotional, calm, smartly narrated. It didn't scream vengeance, it whispered accountability. By evening, the episode had over 40,000 plays. A local news blog picked it up. Then the county probate Facebook group started posting screenshots and speculating. People were connecting the dots fast. At 9:03 p.m., Danielle, my lawyer friend, called me, voice barely hiding her satisfaction. "They're panicking," she said. "The firm that co-handled the estate with your mom just reached out to the court to initiate a full fiduciary review. It's happening." "Good," I said. "And you?" she asked. "You okay?" "Getting there." The fallout came in waves. Wave 1, the legal implosion. The court investigation moved quickly, faster than anyone expected, honestly. It turns out when you apply public pressure in just the right places and back it with documentation, bureaucracy tends to hustle. Within 2 weeks, my mother was removed as executor. A third-party fiduciary was assigned to oversee the distribution of Grandpa's estate. The house she tried to keep? Frozen. No refinancing. No payout. No equity lines. Ellie was issued a cease and desist regarding any further access to the trust. She was invited to submit a formal statement regarding the unauthorized checks. Her lawyer, a public defender, apparently, tried to argue that it was a misunderstanding, that Grandpa gave her permission verbally. But the email receipts told a different story. As for the checks, the paper trail was undeniable. Trent's cooperation, plus his screenshots and voice memos, solidified the timeline. The court ordered both Ellie and my mother to repay the amounts taken, with interest, or face formal charges of misappropriation of estate funds. That was when my mom cracked. Wave 2, the social collapse. The podcast didn't name names, but once the documents hit the courtroom, everything became public record. People started talking. Our church, the same one where my mom used to sit in the front pew like royalty, quietly removed her from the financial committee. Her friends stopped returning her calls. Even her book club ghosted her. Ellie posted a long, rambling video on her channel titled My Truth. It was a masterpiece of avoidance. She cried, said she was misunderstood, claimed she never meant to hurt anyone, and that family should stay private. Comments were disabled after an hour. The video was down by the next day, but it was too late. Clips had already been reposted everywhere. Noah texted me screenshots of the group chat that had spun off within our extended family. Apparently, Aunt Rachel had rallied half the cousins to submit their own legal concerns. A few of them were considering civil action for damages. Ellie's reputation was shot. Her social media following dropped by half. Her brand sponsorships evaporated. And Trent? He moved to Arizona. Smart guy. Wave 3, the personal reckoning. I hadn't spoken to my mom since her cold, clipped phone call. But one night, a letter arrived at my apartment. Handwritten. No return address, but I recognized her cursive immediately. It was 5 pages long. Meandering. Defensive. Emotional. It apologized without apologizing. Said things like, I did what I thought was best, and you'll understand when you're a parent. Near the end, she wrote, you've made a lot of people suffer. Was it worth it? I read that line a few times, and then I laughed. Not cruelly, not bitterly, just with the quiet realization that yes, it was worth it. Not because I wanted anyone to suffer, but because they never expected consequences. Because they thought love meant silence. Because they thought betrayal would go unanswered. I didn't reply. She wasn't owed that anymore. Instead, I spent the next few weeks finishing what I'd started. Danielle helped me draft a final letter to the fiduciary, requesting that my portion of the estate, whatever it ended up being, be donated to a scholarship fund in Grandpa's name. For kids in the foster system. He'd grown up in one. It felt right. I kept nothing. Not the money. Not the house. Not the memories that no longer served me. I let it go. Because this revenge? It wasn't about destruction. It was about liberation. Noah and I still talk. We get coffee every Sunday now. Sometimes we laugh about the drama. Sometimes we talk about Grandpa. Sometimes we don't talk at all. Just sit in the quiet, knowing we got through it. One day he said, you know, I think Grandpa would have been proud. I nodded. I think he already was. And that's how it ended. Not with a scream, or a courtroom brawl, or some viral justice moment. Just the truth, revealed. A family, fractured, but honest. A legacy, reclaimed. And me? Finally free.